This episode of Uncorking a Story is brought to you by Mike Carlin's new novel, Slippery People, available in ebook or paperback format from Amazon.com. Buy your copy today and help send Mike's kids to college. Enjoy the show. Welcome to Uncorking a Story. I'm your host, Mike Carlin, and today I'm excited to share with you my recent conversation with Pat Oates, a comedian and author whose book, How Not to Suck at Comedy, can be purchased from Amazon.com. Pat is a comic who sleeps, breathes, eats comedy, and that passion comes through not only in his act, but also his podcast as well as his writing. Before I get to Pat, though, there's a few things that I want to share because the world has changed a bit since the last time I did one of these. So since last we spoke, how was the world different? Well, I don't know about you, but a few months ago, I was thinking about this whole COVID-19 thing as a problem for other people, you know? But here we are, we're sheltering in place, and as an extrovert who gets paid to talk to people in person for a living, I find myself in a rather precarious situation. But not only that, it's not just about me and how I make a living, it's about the kids I have at home. You know, I've got 3 seniors in high school. They're about to turn 18 in a few days. And it's fair to say that they're more than just a bit bummed that they can't see their friends. They're missing some key milestones in their senior year that are either being, at best put off or at worst canceled. The other day, it really got me down to the point where I was crying uncontrollably in my home office. And unfortunately, that office has a bed in it, so at least I could weep in comfort. But it pushed me to start, I can laugh about it now, but it pushed me to start focusing on the silver linings that I've seen as a result of this whole shelter-in-place thing. For example, I've seen more people walking around my neighborhood than I ever have before. And when I go running, I always run outside. I'm not always run over every few minutes by some crazy motorist. I sound like an old man. My kids are always at home, and I know they think that stinks, right? They think it stinks. I don't blame them. But it's a blessing for us because, they're leaving for college in the fall, and I'm really going to miss them. So those are some of the silver linings that I found, and I started to compile them. I started to compile these thoughts that I had. I put them into a blog that I'm calling The Daily Smile. You can find it on MikeCarlin.com. Just click on the Open Mic blog link in the navigation, and you can see my daily mood enhancers. And I know a few of you have been commenting on them through social media. I do appreciate that. It means a lot. I try to make everybody laugh, basically, in those, either through past memories I've had or experiences, etc. So give it a whirl, see what you think. I'm also happy to announce big news. After a 2-year process of writing and rewriting and editing and rewriting and editing and rewriting again, I'm excited to report that Slippery People is available for sale. Yes, it is available. I've been talking about this project for a couple years. It is available for sale. I did have it on promotion on Amazon this past Tuesday. It shot up to number 3 in the general humor category. So I was very happy to see that. Excited to get it in the hands of many people. Early reviews have been positive, not that I would tell you otherwise. And if you are one of the people who did receive an advanced reader copy, I know that a few of you listen to this. Please consider writing a review on Amazon or Goodreads because that really does help me sell copies, make some money, which is important when you're sheltering in place and you talk to people for a living. And also help send my kids to college because I mentioned they're all going to college in the fall. So that's that. And that's enough about me. Let's talk about Pat Oates. So I met Pat at a comedy club in Connecticut. He hosts a bringer show put on by former Uncorking a Story guest, Frank Margallo. If you remember the Frank interview. If you haven't heard it, go back, listen to it. It's classic. He's Pat's one of these comics who's extremely engaging, but also very, very generous with his time. If he likes something you say as a fellow comic, but he sees that it needs work, he'll give you some advice. And, that's a form of generosity. And that generosity led him to write an advice column for stand-ups. And he took all those columns and he put them into a book, which I mentioned before, but I will mention again because Pat's a nice guy. The book is called How Not to Suck at Comedy, and it's a real treasure trove of advice for comics of any level and ability. One of the standout quotes from this conversation I had with Pat is as follows. He says, "I don't know everything, and I don't know most things. I have to be open to everything and not afraid to ask questions. Always question yourself and don't be afraid to fail." And I love that. It's a humbling message, and I've heard it from other successful people in other fields. I've heard it from other authors. I've heard it from entrepreneurs who have gone on to very successful careers in business. And this idea of being open to learning new things and open to failure really speaks to me because, I'm an entrepreneur too. I started my own business years ago, and it's scary. You have to be open to failure. You have to be willing to try new things. That's another thing we talk about in this interview is kind of what Pat's doing now, since there's no comedy shows to promote, and he's taking his creative efforts and doing more writing and exploring other ways of getting his comedy out there. So they say it's true. Necessity is the mother of invention, right? I sound like my mother now. Apologies for that. But here's at the end of the day, here's what you need to know. Pat Oates is a great comic, right? He's a great comic, and I hope you enjoy his story as much as I did. So now, without any further interruptions from me, here's my conversation with the one and only Pat Oates.
He's doing 5 things at once.
You got a little Scott Ian from Anthrax thing happening there.
I guess, yeah. I think I'm older than him, so I think I win. But I've had that going for a little while. Here we are. Let's go to the full view so I can be here. And boom, there we are.
Scott Ian, of course, married to Meatloaf's daughter, Pearl.
Of course.
Everybody knows that.
Why else, like you said, of course they married. Why would not? Anthrax and Meatloaf make sense
on so many different levels. It's funny. Meatloaf I live in Stamford, Connecticut, and I guess back in the 80s he had a house here, and it's for sale now because a friend of my kids lives on the street where that house was. And it's actually in the newspaper. It says Meatloaf lived here. That's the selling point of the house. It's unbelievable.
And I'm sure there's diners in the area where it's people live from the Meatloaf here, so they can get confusing. It's
our 2 big celebrities down this way were Meatloaf and Hulk Hogan because he used to have a place in Stamford.
Yeah, a lot of wrestlers had places down that way because of everything going on. So a ton of guys lived down there.
Yeah.
So
because we are home to the WWE or the WWF as it was when I was a kid.
Right. Yeah. I'm still an avid 45 years avid WWE fan. I watch everything. So
did you watch WrestleMania with
yes.
the no audience? How I didn't get a chance to see it, but how was it?
Do you know who Eric Bischoff is? He
was
was the guy who ran WCW. He explained it great in his podcast. It was like watching Dancing with the Stars, but there's no music. You're watching people that are incredible. They could be the 2 best dancers in the world. Without that audience element, it fell off.
Yeah.
They did a great job to sell and push things. The 2 things that stood out with WrestleMania was the 2 produced things. They did a thing called the Firefly Funhouse where John Cena and Bray Wyatt's character, it was never in a ring. It was inside the mind of John Cena. It was like a movie. It had a Saw element and craziness. And WWE, they spare no expense when it comes to production and movie things like that. They did a great job with the editing. And they did another match with the Undertaker and AJ Styles called a Boneyard match. And that was a fight outside of a construction thing. And it was edited and all that stuff. And they kind of changed the way you could watch wrestling now with no audience. But the other matches, it was tough. But it was a nice escape for 2 days.
Yeah.
Just to not hear about COVID and all these things. It was something fun to watch. And you respected all of them for working that hard trying to do something.
Yeah, and also, it's a close contact sport. So, they're putting themselves obviously not within, outside of 6 feet of each other. They're putting their lives on the line.
They had to change some of the matches. One of the main events, Roman Reigns, was supposed to be in it. Roman Reigns had leukemia. He's in remission now from it. So he decided that I cannot do this. I can't because his immune system's exposed. So he had to pull out and not fight, and they had to do a change last second. And another wrestler, The Miz, also said he was starting to feel ill and didn't feel right with having babies in his house and stuff like that, exposing himself. And the WWE was understandable and did not make them, work.
Yeah.
And they were able to be out of it. So
yeah. So that's it's an interesting point. Them kind of like forcing them, like this whole thing that's going on is forcing companies and people to really rethink how they do things. Right. And it's actually like, to me, it's like it can actually force innovation and sometimes positive innovation. Like I was watching. I like country music, so I was watching the Academy of Country Music special that was on last Friday night. And usually it's that big produced show with I don't know where they do it, the Ryman Auditorium or whatever, but they basically just had all these country music performers going acoustic from their family room, recording it on their iPad, and it was fantastic. Like it was great. As movie
anyone that's built, if you want to take any musician who's built for this, it's country music.
Yeah.
Because that's where it roots from. People being in their backyard, playing for their friends, strumming. It's not someone looking for that. I mean, yes, nowadays, because country music is not what it used to be. We were growing up where, like, you were weird or different, or you had to, like, be from the South. It's now mainstream as can be. Country music flows into pop music very easily now. Same way with rap. They're all kind of blended together. But back then, and even now, they grew up just playing guitar and doing acoustic stuff. They didn't have full bands and things like that. So that to me, that's who I'd want to hear. But I don't know who was on. I didn't watch it. I don't know a lot of country music, but I love Chris Stapleton, and I would want to see someone like him do that, because I'll go on YouTube rabbit holes all the time to see all the things he's done and recorded with people, because he's such a brilliant songwriter and great performer.
Yeah. So I guess my question for you, as a comic, how are you handling all this whole shelter in place thing? I mean, it must be, painful to not have a place to perform, every night of the week.
Yes, but also the part about not being able to perform, yes, that's been very tough, not only financially, but also it's a way it's my therapy. It's how I, express myself. I enjoy it. I love being in that element. But when it comes to the quarantine, comics, we're all living this life. During the day, we're all in our houses. We're the ones already doing the Skypes, the Zooms, the YouTubes. So I just found other ways to, use green screen. I've been trying to be more creative with being at home and saying, now that I have this opportunity to learn these things I didn't get a chance to, let me learn that. Let me learn how to try to deal with more technology. My kids got me signed up on TikTok. We were playing around on there so I could figure out different ways to express myself. Because I think this is a time where, when comics always say, like, you can't change this, you can't, comedy's only funny this way. And then somebody does something that changes that and everyone climbs. I think we're going to see a lot of new ways to entertain that's going to make creative people really come out and find that maybe stand-up can be done in many different manners. We're not there yet, but I think we're going to find ways, because a lot of people are going to be afraid to go out. Once they say it's okay, there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to want to be in crowds. It's going to hurt local shows. It's not going to hurt big shows. Someone's going to want to go see Kevin Hart, but they're probably going to be a little worried to go see me because they don't know who I am, and they're going to be in a place with like 75 to 150 people, and they don't know the environment. Is it worth going out and risking? So we're going to find new ways,
Yeah, and it's also like the club owners too, I would imagine, are going to take the big name, the guaranteed money, versus, and like bumping, people who were just kind of hitting that regular performing stride, people who are, doing well, kind of headlining local shows. Like I imagine like places like the Stress Factory, they might be, bumping people to get the bigger names, and the bigger names are going to want to start performing as well.
Right. But the counterside to that is that the bigger names may look at this and say, I don't want to travel as much anymore. I don't really need to. I have a lot of money. I'm finding that I can make a lot of money and can do a lot from my own home. I can sit here and people will pay money to go to my OnlyFans. People will pay money to go on my Patreon, and I don't really need to go out and do it. And I can just record a special somewhere and run it myself and not go to the smaller clubs. I think that the guys that will do the club stuff will be the people that can have a bit of a draw, but not cost a ton of money, because you don't know they're going to come in. I think that local ringer will be someone who will get a lot of work, who's like a guy who can draw, or a girl who can draw 50, 60 people throughout the weekend who might not be as funny, but maybe they're the ones that get their friends to come out. If I was a club owner, I'd be afraid to invest too much money, because what if this happens again?
Yeah.
What if they have guarantees? I don't have guarantees. You can pay me for the weekend. I get what I get. Yeah, there might be a deal like, hey, if you wait till Friday to cancel, you got to pay me something. Those guys, they get half the money deposited to the agent before. They lose out on money if they do cancel. What if they turn around and say, sorry, we're not done yet. Now we're quarantining again. So I think it depends if the club has a lot of money, is run well, and believes in itself and its promotion. Yeah. If they do, I think we're going to see a lot of small clubs go out of business because right now they have no money coming in. So I think we're going to lose some clubs. The big names will be fine, but some of the small, like, the Stress Factory and Comics and Mohegan Sun and Funny Bone, they're all large ones that can support themselves and take care of that. They're going to take a little hit, obviously, but they'll be able to recover. But there are some small local clubs, throughout New England and stuff like that are not going to be able to recover from this at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think people are going to want to come out and laugh after this, when it is safe to start getting into crowds again. They're going to need that release.
Some will, but I think I think we're going to find a lot of people I think some people are going to become used to this lifestyle, and people that weren't ones to go out all the time are going to be like, well, I can just stay in now. I think some clubs are going to take advantage of what we're learning now. I think you're going to be able to buy tickets to comedy shows on a closed thing through Zoom, and you'll be able to watch the show through here, and your laughter will come out through one speaker. I think they can find that way. You could charge, you could pay $20 to go to the show, $15 general admission, $10 to Zoom for the show. And you turn it off. They'll find ways to make sure I can't record it or anything like that, but I can pay money, and on my one link, I can watch a comedy show from Stress Factory. And I think that will take care of the people that are afraid to go out. And yeah, you'll lose money on the drinks and food, but I'm sure they'll find a way to go, if you click this button, part of your Grubhub order will go to our club, 10% while you're watching it, and we'll get they'll always find ways. But I don't think we're just going to go back to normal. I don't think you can. When you shut down a species and you say you can't exist the way you were, some are going to be strong and be able to come back out and deal like nothing happened. But a lot of them are going to be leery, especially with something that we don't understand at all.
Right. Right. So one of the reasons why I want to talk to you is you've got this book, How Not to Suck at Comedy. And I wanted just to dig into that a little bit. But before we start talking about the book, which I've read and I love.
Thank you.
I wanted to get a sense of when did comedy come into your mind as something that you thought you could make a career out of? Like when did it go? Actually, when did it come into your life to begin with? And then when did it go from being a hobby to a career path?
I got tricked. Seriously, I got tricked into doing comedy. I was always the guy, like, I'm sure, Michael, you're the same way. Your group of friends throughout life tells you you're the funny guy. You should be a comedian, whatever. But you don't even know what that means or what it is or where to go. Once you start doing comedy, you find out comedy's like Fight Club. There's a lot of underground places you can go find comedy you didn't know existed.
Yeah.
But when I first was hanging out with a buddy of mine that I've known since college, we were just hanging out one day, and he said, "Let's go to this bar and just get some wings and, go there." And we went there. They were having a comedy contest in Naugatuck, Connecticut, some small bar. It was called Melissa's. We went there just to have wings and stuff. I did not know there was a local comedy contest going on. I also did not know that he signed me up for it. So we sat in the audience. They had 4 contestants. They announced before. One of them, actually, there was 3 judges. The owner of the bar, the owner's father, and a girl they were both trying to sleep with. And they were the 3 judges. And they sat at a table behind the stage like they were American Idol judges. And they were going to decide who won $100 for the comedy contest. It was a guy who just lost his job who looked like Joe Pesci. And he lost his painting job. So he needed $100 to pay off some bill or something. And he needed it bad. And all he did was bad impressions of Rodney Dangerfield. But he would have to say Rodney Dangerfield after, because it was so bad you didn't know who it was. The second contestant was a magician who was trying to do card tricks in front of a drunk audience on a Friday night in Naugatuck, Connecticut. He was doing his cards, and someone made fun of him, and he threw the cards at them and just said, 52 card pickup, mother effer, and just boom, hit him right in the face. And so the third guy was actually the fry cook from the restaurant, and they had to tell everyone to stop ordering wings and tenders for a little bit so he could come up and perform with apron, look with grease on him, and actually didn't do bad. Like SpongeBob jokes about being a fry cook, and it wasn't bad. And they said, "We have one more contestant," and they said they read the name. They went, Pat Oates. I looked at my friend, and he goes, "You can do this." I walked up. I made fun of the 3 judges. I made fun of the people in the room. I made fun of Naugatuck, Connecticut, how there's that weird smell on Route 8. No one knows what it is. I made everything going on, and I won $100. And when it was over, my friend looked at me and said, "You're funnier than 3 people. That's a start."
Right.
And right there, I got the bug. And I was like, I wonder, I know what I just did wasn't comedy. I know that's not what comedy is. And I know that I'm not going to just go places and get $100 for not having anything, but I didn't know what it was. So this is dating myself. I got home. I was living in Simsbury, Connecticut at the time. And I went on MySpace, which was the thing then. And I went on there and I looked for comedians in my area. And I found a comedian named Linda Belt, who is still doing comedy all over. And she's from West Hartford area at the time. And I messaged her and said, I want to know about comedy. Can you help me? And she steered me in the direction of an open mic, which was at Sweet Jane's in Hartford, that was run by a comedian now who's doing it for a good friend of mine, Darren Rivera. He ran it. And a lot of the comedians that I know and work with now and are still working were all guys there. And I showed up, and the rest, once I started doing it, I couldn't stop. And it was a hobby at first, but it became something that I kind of took to right away, and people started hiring me right away. I didn't know what I was doing yet, but I started getting involved and liking it, and then it's been 12 years ever since.
So the bug bites you and you live with the sting, as they say.
A lot of people say this, and I don't know from experience, but a lot of people say when you do heroin, it's the first hit that you're always chasing. It's that high. The reason why people continue to do it always is because they want that first high again. The first time you make strangers laugh into a microphone, like for real, I'm still chasing that laugh.
Yeah.
I've done really well. I've been in big places. I've had great laughs. I've done really tremendous shows that I'm really proud of. Nothing's better than that first time you didn't realize that you had this power.
Yeah.
And you go after that. And that's the bug I got. And I wanted to know how to do that all the time.
Yeah, it becomes like this like intrinsic like motivating factor. Like, and I know it too. Like, you know, I was always able to make like my family laugh and my father laugh. Like if I could get him laughing, you know, I know that I've done something funny. But you know, when you can get a bunch of people laughing who don't give a shit about you, to give them that like emotional moment or that emotional release. You're right. I mean, there is like no feeling like that in the world. And like my wife doesn't understand. She's like, I don't understand why you do that, because she'll see me go up and fail. And she'll be like, you know, it just hurts me when you fail. Like I feel bad for you. I'm like, don't feel bad for me. I'm like, it just didn't work out. But the moment you get that laugh or like an applause break, to me, that's like, I have a hard time sleeping after that, you know, like you're just kind of wired from it.
Yes. Both ways. I think the more you do it, actually, those you don't care as much. The applause breaks the laugh. You start to feel like, okay, I was supposed to do that. That's my job. I actually, when I'm working on material, if I don't have a fail for a little bit with the joke, I think there's something wrong with what I'm doing. I need fails because I need to go up there. I don't believe in bombing. I've said this in my book, and I've said this to a million people. I don't believe in killing or bombing. That's ridiculous. It's just learning from things. And comedy is nothing more than writing to edit, to repeat, to write, to edit. That's all you're doing. The first time you do a joke, it's not done. It might have worked, but to make it universal, it has to work that way. So to me, I need failure because I need to go back, listen to the audio and go, okay, now what? How do I change this? How do I work on this and that, whatever? How do I make this so the world gets it? 'Cause it's my job to make sure they get it. If it just hits hard and they laugh, a lot of times I'll say it probably had something to do with the situation more than the joke or my skill set. It's just the moment, you know, and I kind of push that away because you don't want to ride highs. You don't want to live in the lows, but you don't want to deny the lows.
Yeah. And one of the things I like about it is I'm a writer. I've written 7 novels now. And like for me to get feedback on them, like you've got to write it, you've got to, you know, edit it, publish it, and then wait for reviews to come in for the most part. I mean, you can give it to friends and family to see what they think, but they're going to lie to you. And
even if you give it to someone who isn't a friend or whatever, they're either going to be overcritical and act like there's something they're not, or they just don't even know what they're saying. They're like, it was good, but it's not something for me. I'm like, well,
yeah,
I want it to be for you. It's a book. It's
right. But with comedy, it's like, and most of my novels, I mean, I write in like the mystery genre, but they're always comedic. Like there's always like some wackiness in there. But you know, for me I have to wait for feedback. But with comedy, it's like I can write a joke. and I'll know immediately if it's good or bad because people are either laughing or they're not. And it's like, to me, like that immediate feedback is something that, I don't get from my other creative outlet, which is, kind of writing novels.
Right. With myself, I now also do a part-time radio gig, which right now is not going on either. And that was the hardest challenge, was not having that instant gratification or instant failure, if you will. I'm now saying something and hoping, but I had been podcasting. So even if I'm with somebody else on the show, I've started to learn the same way you said. I know when writing a joke already, even if I say it at open mic and no one's there and no one laughs, I know if it's funny or not now. I've learned the formula. I understand what I have to do with it. I don't need the 12 people at the open mic who are not paying attention to laugh. Right. If I'm killing at an open mic, I throw out the joke because that means that if you're laughing at something at an open mic and it's mostly comics or drunks, they're not the audience you're looking for, and they're laughing at peculiar, odd, failure, stupid, crazy things like that. So I don't even like going with that. I need to know right away if it connects or not. Within and resonates. I don't also care so much if you laugh at it. I want to know afterwards if you come up to me and say, hey, when you talked about this made me think this. That's where I know I've got something. And that's where I start to feel that connection more. So I kind of ignore, like you were saying before, like getting the first laugh. Knowing right away, I ignore that. I need to know it's going to work 10 times, 20 times, not once, because it could have been the moment. It could have been the way I was feeling. It could have been a word, but can I continue that? Can I go the next night to the next place with a new gathering of human beings and make them laugh the same way the first night did? Consistency to make sure it works all the time. So that's why I think you can hear the first laugh. It could work. And then you overthink or change things wrong or do whatever. Can you continue to make it? That's what makes a comic. It's night in, night out.
Yeah. I mean, not to make a nerdy comparison, but I come out of the field of market research, and there's something we always look for when we're testing concepts like new product ideas, which is reliability. It worked with this sample of people. Is it going to work again with another sample of 300 people and another sample? So we actually we actually do mathematics to figure out what's the reliability of this result. And it's the same thing. It sounds like it's the same thing with comedy. How reliable is this joke going to be if I do it with another audience in another state, in another city, et cetera?
When you're doing the product, the end of the day is, does everybody get what this product is? Does everybody understand what I need to do with this product? That's what your joke is. Does everyone get what I'm saying? Does everyone understand my message? And can everybody be on board? Do they have to have prior knowledge of something to understand this? If so, that's not on them. That doesn't mean the joke's not for them. That means it's on me to make sure they receive the message. Because at the end of the day, I showed up on a stage and started talking. I can't need them to do homework first. I can't need them to know a show. So therefore, if I do a joke and I mention a TV show and I say Stranger Things, but the audience is in their 60s, young comics would go, well, they don't know the show. They don't get my humor. Well, you brought up Stranger Things. They may not know it. So what can you do? Can you use a simile? Can you use comparisons? Is there things you can do to say, well, Stranger Things is like da-da-da. And then they go, oh, okay. And then you continue the joke. It's a quick thing. And now they connect. So it's that same thing. Test markets. I do it in front of these people, they get this. I do it in front of these people, they get that. But at the end of the day, just make sure that you're speaking a universal language, which is funny. Even if they don't have all the knowledge, if it's funny and it works and it has a right structure to it, people will laugh.
Yeah, and one of the things that I noticed that I took away from your book is kind of the importance of, especially if you are kind of a younger comic, watching the other comics who are performing for two reasons. A, what you can learn from them, but B, what you can kind of ascertain from the crowd. What is the crowd reacting to? And then kind of using that as kind of insight into what you're going to perform up there and just kind of tailoring what you're going to perform up there.
Right, and not just for that show you're on.
Yeah.
You should do that to use for future shows. Just because it's that one audience, I'll watch, and I'm not always in my head saying, okay, that this audience is getting that from this person, so they'll relate to this. I like to see, at the end of the day, we're writing from our point of view, but trying to connect with other people's point of views. So I need to understand how other people see the world for me to connect with them how I see the world. So watch how other comics attack things. If I talk about kids, and another comic goes up and talks about their kids. How do they approach things? How do they say things? And how is the audience reacting to that? Is that different or similar to how I deliver and say things? And if they're not connecting, what do I need to do to make sure they understand the same message this guy is not getting across? So by not paying attention, you could miss out. If you watch three guys hit on the same girl in a bar and they do the same pickup line and it doesn't work, and then I walk up and do the same pickup line, of course I'm going to fail. But if I noticed that they were doing that and I realized they were being creepy, how about have a nice personable approach? Then it may work for me. You read the room and you know your audience.
Yeah. Yep. So I want to talk about the book. So what got you thinking about, putting all this wisdom down into a book for other comics to use? Like, when did that thought come to you?
Once again, like everything else in my life, by mistake. I was a couple of years ago. Dave Chappelle was going to be making his comeback, and he was going to be on Saturday Night Live. Him, and if you remember this, him and Tribe Called Quest were going to be on it. And how old are you?
I'm 45.
Right. So am I. So we are from that same age where those people were a big deal in the world at a certain time in our lives. And so to me, I wasn't watching Saturday Night Live a lot then. And there was nothing that made me want to tune in. When I saw they were going to be on, I put something on Facebook just saying, wow, for the first time in a long time, I'm being drawn to want to watch Saturday Night Live. I'm very interested to see how Dave Chappelle talked. This is when Trump was running. It was just about to become president. And I was very interested to see how they would react to the world and be given a live mic, both of them, and see how they did that. And I wrote something like that on Facebook. And a guy named Cameron Amigo, who runs a company called Laugh Staff, was a friend of mine because he's also a comic as well. He was doing, comic in some parts of New York and stuff, and had messaged me and said, I saw your post, and I really was interested on your take on that. Would you mind writing a small little article for our Laugh Staff? Laugh Staff was mostly known for doing best man speeches and maid of honor speeches and things like that. In a comic, they would hire comics to do it to make so people could have funny things to say at weddings. They'd pay them for that, but they also dabbled in other comics writing other things. They wanted to branch out a little. So I said, sure. I've never written anything like that. And I wrote something about it. They enjoyed it. And they said, how about we try to do something where you're a comic that no one really knows, but has been working a long time. How about like a diary of a comic type deal? So I tried that and I wrote it for a week or two, but I noticed that wasn't really me. And I was at an open mic and I was watching some comics struggle with some stuff that I had struggled with. And I kind of just walked up to one comic and said, hey, instead of this. And they were like, oh, wow. I didn't realize other people even dealt with that. And when I went home, I messaged them and I said, would it be okay if I kind of wrote an advice thing? And they said, yeah, well, you could try it. I said, and it wouldn't be like me coming from that point of view. Like, and I'm not trying to make fun of anything, but like the comedy Bible and books like that, they come from a point of view of someone who had already made it and was kind of talking down. I don't mean in a rude way, but it was more of a lecture type book. And I was like, I want to talk to people about, hey, I'm in this moment with you. I'm seeing the obstacles you're seeing now. I can try to at least help answer questions or make you realize you're not alone in these questions that you're dealing with at open mics. So I just started to write about those kind of things. And I just started putting it up with them on Laugh Staff and posting it on Medium and things like that. And it started to grow traction. And not just in Connecticut, but like all over New England. And people were sharing in other groups. Next thing I know, I'm in groups in Ohio. I'm in groups in Arizona. And people are messaging me saying, we love these articles. Keep them going. And it was just a weekly thing. And I continued to do it. And about 1.5 years, 2 years in, I was approached by someone to say, why don't you turn this into a book? People would love this. And I was like, people only like it because it's free. Nobody would really, that doubt you have in your head. And I was never someone who ever wrote. I was a crowd work guy forever. I was not known for writing. I started to write those articles and realized, wait, if I could connect with people with the articles, maybe I could write jokes better too. So when I started doing that, I told myself for 1 year, no crowd work. And I started to write jokes. And in 2 years, I recorded 2 albums of an hour each of material. So the writing from the books helped me start writing better jokes. And it advanced me as a comic as well. And I think that also helped me write these articles because I was going through the struggling process of almost a newer comic, trying to reinvent myself and write and rewrite and edit and going to mics and reading audiences and trying to deal with bookers and all the things. So I think everything just connected with people. And it just, when I put it out on ebook, people said, well, it needs to be a paperback. And then we went to there. And the great thing was one of the guys who, I know I'm going on forever and I
That's
apologize, but one of the guys that really enjoyed it was a guy named Rick Jenkins, who owns the comedy studio in Boston. And he was sharing it with people, and he's had the who's who of comedians come through his place, and responsible for so many people getting on late night shows and things like that. And he had always shared my articles and enjoyed them and messaged me and said, I really love what you're doing there. And I tell people to read the articles every week. So when I was going to write the book, I said, would you mind writing the foreword? And he wrote me an incredible foreword. And it was so amazing to have someone that I respected like that at a place like that speak up about the articles, how it helps people. And I get great feedback from it to this day. I mean, people just really connect with it from all levels. So that's really makes me feel good, because it was just supposed to be for comics. It's a way for comics to go, you're not alone. You know, you're not alone in this struggle, these weird obstacles, and we're all afraid. No one's afraid to go, I have an article about it. No one's afraid to go on stage and talk about their penis or how they masturbate, but they're afraid to ask if they're getting paid at a gig or if they can do 7 minutes. It's really weird what we're afraid to say and not afraid to say. So I wanted to try to answer those questions for people. If they can look through the book and say, oh, that is okay to worry about this or think that, or I don't need to approach it this way. So
in your mind, like what are the biggest misconceptions that, you know, people have about comics? You know, what do you think? You know, the average everyday person, what do you think the biggest misconceptions are?
Couple. One, we're always on and we're always funny. It must be great to be, you tell somebody to joke, oh, it must be crazy. Your wife must be crazy living with a comedian. Well, no, he's a human being who does a thing. We're not always on. Now, if you're a comic and you're working constantly, your mind is always, you have a comedic mind. I mean, your mind is trained. You might have a mathematical mind. There's different people with different ways they approach things in life. They see things a certain way. You and I will look at something and laugh at something that other people would go, you shouldn't laugh at that. I'm like, yeah, that's why it's funny. You know, but they don't understand that. So therefore, you know, he's always on. He must be always funny to be with. That we have money. That seriously, because when they watch TV, they see big stars. They don't. Most people, 90% of the world that watches comedy. I mean, now with podcasts and Joe Rogan and people making working out jokes and stuff like that known. Most people don't know about the struggle that like every other struggling artist. So therefore they think like if you're a comic and you're performing at Mohegan Sun, you must be getting paid a ton. And I say, well, no, the big name who draws you is in, but the other opening acts are just people trying to hopefully get there.
Right.
You know, and that's another one. And those are basically the main ones I think that people usually think. Oh, and also that we don't write our own material and we just go up there and say whatever. Everyone's just like, oh, you said, or I saw you last time. Why did you do the same joke? It's like, well, that's how you make it good. No, I saw Jerry Seinfeld 5 years ago and a year ago, and he did different jokes. Like, well, there was 5 years where he worked on those jokes very much so. I think there's a lot of misconceptions with that. Oh, and the main one, and I'm sure you've heard this, anyone can do it.
Yeah. Anyone
can do it. I could do it. I could go up there if I wanted to. And they don't realize, because to be a musician, you need to know how to play an instrument. If to be an artist, to know how to paint or form clay or things like that. You and I are just talking into a microphone. They can talk. They think they can just do it. And therefore, they don't always have a respect for the art of it. And I hate calling it art because this sounds stupid, but like at the end of the day, it is an art form, and we are creating things, and we are eliciting feelings out of people through our words and our movements. So therefore, I think a lot of people think it's easy and won't take the chance to do it. And if they did, it's very easy just to blame the audience, the room, the situation, the other comics bring in. They don't have to blame themselves. So they don't have respect for us or the art, but they think that they could just be the best at it ever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like asking them, when can 3 minutes feel like 3 hours? The answer is at an open mic when you don't know what you're doing.
Exactly. I think I'm not a NASCAR guy, but I bet you there's a lot of people who watch NASCAR and then go, I could drive fast. I could go left 500 times. It's like that machine could kill you in a second. You're not good driving 60 with rules. Like imagine driving with all those cars, but you couldn't do it. But I think there's certain things that we watch and go, I could do that. But no one watches Michael Jordan and goes, I can do that. You go, okay, I can't do that. What he's doing is there. But it took skill and practice to make it look effortless. But the best comics look effortless, so people watch them and go, oh, I could be Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart's just talking. No, he's not. It's been crafted, skilled, run through the ringer, and the amount of pressure he has to be funny constantly because the world's wanting him to fail. It's insane. What we have to go through judgment constantly. People are sitting there. If you and I walk on stage and no one knows us, they're with their arms crossed. They are inside. They are judging you, and they're waiting for you to gain their trust. You have to go up right away. And that's why I never understand why a comic goes up and goes, "How's everybody doing tonight? Oh, you having wings? Oh, what about the weather?" It's like, tell a joke. Tell a 15 to, what is happening there? Sorry. Tell a 15-second, I was converting another thing, a 15-second to 30-second quick joke that makes them laugh, uncross their arms, give you their trust, and now pull back, and now they can enjoy. Yeah. That's the bit. We have to do that right away. We have to diffuse that right away and come up. And that's harder to me than painting. I'm sorry. Because you could paint and then you could throw it away. The second if I screw up at the beginning and don't get your trust, I'm digging out of the hole. So I think people don't respect it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like when you'd see like new people go up and, like at an open mic. Like I used to go up to the Sea Grape all the time on Monday nights. There'd be a show there. And that place is like, it's like Thunderdome. I mean, it's a bunch of drunks, town drunks at the bar in Fairfield and people watching baseball on mute. And they're more interested in the baseball on mute than they are about the comics. But when I see like kids go up, I say kids because everyone's a hell of a lot younger than I am.
I'm with you on that one.
But when I see them go up and they say like, I'm so stoned right now. Like, I'm like, that's how you're starting it. And even though that gets it's not a real show, it's an open mic and it's a weird open mic at that. But, I do think that there are a lot of things that like really young, brand new comics can learn. And I'm curious, like, what's the first piece of advice you would give somebody who's, going on stage for the first, second or third time in their life? What would you tell them?
It doesn't matter. That's what I tell all of them. It doesn't matter. This show is not a show. It doesn't matter. If you get a laugh, if you fail, if you crush, if a joke works, doesn't work, if you do 3 minutes instead of 5, if you forget the words to your joke, it doesn't matter. And remember that for every show you ever do. No one show matters. Comedy is about you becoming a better comic. Comedy is about you developing. I don't care if I perform in front of a theater in front of 2,000 people or I perform in front of 6 drunk people at the Sea Grape. It doesn't matter because the next day I still wake up and have to do comedy again. I need to become better. So when you first go up, if your whole first year of comedy, you should be doing nothing more than paying attention to everything that's going on when you're at a mic, paying attention to what other people are doing, and just going up and getting used to standing in front of people. Just make noise. You don't know who you are yet. You don't understand. Everything you think you know comedy is, please try to forget. Humble yourself. Stop thinking you know because you watch comedy and you listen to podcasts or you read books, and realize that you're going to have to go up there and just learn from scratch. Because it takes about a year for you to even understand what your voice is on stage. Yeah. Some people even more than that, 2 or 3 years. So I think the key is just take a breath and realize this doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Right now, everything you're doing is practice. Nothing is an audition. Nothing is a chance for you to be on TV. If I know that they're convincing, I know that your friends are telling you you're hilarious. I know that you're at a club in New York. I know that they're telling you that you're going to be this big thing. But then why would there be comics more famous than you? Why would they be doing it for 30 years? Why wouldn't Seinfeld just have his first day be at Broadway, do his big show, and then it was over? No, you don't be hoodwinked into other things. Realize it's a long process and just take a breath and just enjoy what you're doing. Have fun. Because if you're gonna already be stressed out right away, you'll never have fun with this. You got to enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah, and as you're talking about that, I'm realizing A, how judgmental I've been, but also B, it's almost like running, and I know you're a runner. So it's like, when you start off running for the first time, and I've been a runner forever, you're going to have some bad runs, right? You're going to be like, oh my God, I just didn't feel it, or I couldn't push myself, or, something will happen. And what you have to realize is that every run is going to make you better. And, you're not going to be able to do, a 10-mile run if you've only been running for, a month or so, right? You have to build up to that. You got to build up the endurance to that. So every individual run doesn't really matter. and unless you're thinking about it from the point of view of it's getting me just a little bit better, it's helping me build my endurance just a little bit, and it's like almost like baby steps to the ultimate goal. And I that sort of analogy kind of came to me as you were just saying that.
Oh, no, and as you know, you could have, if you have a great run, if you're done and you feel like, you know what, I could have gone another mile. Yeah, that's a good feeling and all, but that's not going to help you. What you learn from is when you have that run where you're doing a 5-mile run in mile 2, you're like, I need to quit. Am I going to continue to push? I mean, not if you're at the point of hurting yourself, but in other words, is this just my mind telling me I can't? Can I get through this? Can I make this become the run that I control? When you're done with that 5 miles and you did do it, you feel better about yourself and your next day's run, and you learn more from it than you did from that great, easy 10-mile run you had that day. Yeah. You know, that run in the rain and the wind where you're like, it's not that cold, but I feel bitter. And why did I choose this path? Because I'm going uphill so much, and it seems like there's never a down. How do we not go down? How is there not a down right now? Am I in the sky? How am I running this? Oh, I chose a path where usually it's easy to run on this road, but there's, cars are driving closer and there's mud here and you're just like, what am I doing? I must look like an idiot. My headphones, I didn't forget to charge my headphones, and now I am just running to my own thoughts. I can't do that. How do I calm myself? Those, just like in comedy, the struggles when you go to the Sea Grape and there's 8 people, yes, that's not a show. But that's the run I want. I want 8 people not paying attention. I want TVs to be muted. I don't want that for a show, but that tells me this. If you walk up, if a brand new comic goes up, he's not going to get their attention. I've been doing this 12 years. I'll get your attention. Not by being a jerk, but by doing a thing that a comic I just had on my podcast a minute ago, we put it up today. Rodney Norman taught me this wonderful thing 12 years ago, and I put it in my book, and it's called Moth to a Flame. And what I do is, Michael, if you're listening to my jokes right now and you're enjoying it, I shouldn't care if the people behind you, the 8 people, are not paying attention. I would do that when I was younger. I'd be like, I need their attention. I need them to pay attention to me. I need them to laugh. So I'm ignoring you now, and I'm working to them. But then I'm just destroying the entire room I had. Instead, I just tell jokes to you. I get you to laugh. Then the other morons in the back go, wait, what's going on over there? Like little moths. They see the flame, and they're going, what's going on here? And they start coming in, and the next thing you know, they're paying attention. I get you to come in by just focusing and having confidence. I can run through that wind and rain when I know I'm confident and I can make it. If I just quit on it, I'm never going to learn from it. So when I started running, that was the way I kind of compared both things anyway. It is that struggle of fighting through, but it's all about me saying I can do this and I can become better.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard Rodney on your show probably last year, the first time I'd ever heard him. And then I was listening to Sirius, I don't know, a few months ago on one of the comic channels. I can't remember which, the 75 comedy channels they have. But I heard a bit of his, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. But he's very, very funny. And I don't listen to a lot of clean comedy, but he's funny and clean. Like those.
He is funny and clean, but he delivers it in a way that you don't sit there and go, he's clean.
Yeah.
You realize later, like, oh yeah, he's very clean, but he's tremendous. He's been doing it forever. He ran comedy clubs in Utah called Wise Guys. And he was one of the first guys when Ryan Hamilton started, he helped him out. He's open for Brian Regan. He's open for Sam Kinison. He's open for Dave Attell. I mean, he's got a wealth of knowledge, and he lives in between Connecticut and Utah. And when I went to that Sweet Jane's mic, I talked about my first ever open mic, Rodney was there.
Okay.
And Rodney's one of the guys that came up to me, gave me that bit of advice. And the next week he saw me not working to the back of the room. And he said, hey, I noticed you used my advice. I said, well, why wouldn't I? You didn't need to come up to me and say anything. And he goes, well, I'll help you whenever you need it. And I've always remembered that too. When I'm at mics, I'll go up to a comic. Not that I'm going to say I'm somebody, but in the world of New England comedy, comedians know who I am. I wrote the book. I've been doing it a while. I'm one of the few guys who've been doing it as a career now that still show up to open mics and things. But some comics don't know who I am. I'll walk up to somebody if I hear a joke I like. I get excited like a fan. I walk up to some young comic. I'm like, Michael, you told this joke about this. That's amazing. You ever try doing this and that, whatever? Hey, or maybe do this or try to word it this way. You will either look at me and go, oh, great. I mean, I'll take that advice. And maybe not even take it, but at least listen to me. Or you'll be like, whatever, dude. Who are you? I don't care. Even if you don't use the advice, if you were open to it, I'll help you for life. If you weren't, I won't take it like to heart, but Rodney taught me that some people aren't open to it.
Yeah.
Another reason I wrote the book, some people's pride get in the way, but their pride doesn't get in the way of reading a book. So therefore, I'm not going to abandon that person. I just realized they feel like they just got off stage, just performed. It's very vulnerable, and they feel like I'm now telling them they're not funny. And I'm not saying that. If they really thought about it, I only came up to them because the joke connected. If someone comes up to you and talks to you about your joke, even if it didn't work, it made them listen. There's something there. Out of the feeling, social media is the greatest open mic there is. You wrote a premise on Twitter. You wrote a premise on Facebook. If you get a ton of likes, people connect. You don't write the joke out. That's what I put out premises all the time. They become something totally different, but I can find out if people of all walks of life relate to what I'm saying. So, and their likes are their advice. They're running up.
Yeah, it's your focus group, so to speak. Coming from a guy who runs focus groups for a living. Well, as we wrap up here, Pat, tell me what are some of the bigger things you've learned about yourself as a person through comedy, through your 12 plus years of being a comic. Some of the things that you've learned about yourself. I
mean, a ton. I've had so many changes. I started comedy married and drinking, and I'm divorced and I don't drink. I've been overweight. I've been underweight. I've been at the shape I'm in now. I was a guy who just literally went up there without writing any jokes, and I became a person that now writes things and takes time and detail to do it. I was somebody who was afraid of taking advice, and now I help give advice. I think most importantly what I learned from comedy is that people can change, and people can, throughout life, always learn. We always hear that old dogs, new tricks thing. No. You can always learn things, but be open to learning everything. What I learned the most, I guess, is that I don't know everything. And to be honest, I don't know most things. Because to do good at comedy, I have to learn other things. I can just talk about me if I want, but if I want to relate to you, I need to learn things about the world that I wouldn't normally look at. Be open to everything. Watch shows I wouldn't normally watch. Pay attention to comedy and music that I wouldn't normally pay attention to. Read the parts of the paper I never read before. Be open to everything. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to question yourself, and don't be afraid to fail. So I think I learned that a lot because that made me grow as a person. I've been able to relax more as a person and not be someone who was. I didn't like myself when comedy started. I have depression. I was not a fan of myself. I have very low self-esteem, and I've started to love myself because of not because I'm on stage and they're laughing. That's nice and all, but it's not about them. It's about me being proud enough to go, what I think is worth it. The work I put into it, the blood, sweat, and tears is worth the effort. And I feel good. I can have a job that I love and enjoy. Yes, I'm poor and I'm now non-essential, but at a moment I was loved. And I would rather be poor and do something I love before I die than do something I hate and always wonder why.
Yeah. Yeah. There is that self-discovery aspect to comedy, isn't there? I mean, if you're, and I do write, I write a lot. I try to write something every day, but there's like part of my writing process is usually sparked by some kind of insight I had into myself, something new about myself that I didn't realize I had. And then I'm just trying to work through in words or through a story. But with comedy, there is that too, because most of everything that I've ever kind of said on stage is something that happened to me in my life, or as a result of me being the father of triplets, or, being married for 20 plus years. It's like, that's the well I go to for material. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work, but it always involves this process of discovery. I probably learn more about myself through like my creative endeavors than I have in anything else that I do.
Because what you have to do, yes, no joke is 100% truth. It can be 90% sometimes, but if the truth was hilarious, then your uncle at a barbecue would be the funniest guy in the world. So it's like one of those things where it's like we have to add things, but to do that, we have to look at the characters within the story. And you are one of the characters. So it's easy to break down, oh, my wife said this, her personality, I can teach that personality, or I can add things. How many times you have 3 kids? Sometimes you could take something 2 of the kids did, but put it on another kid because those characters are different than the actual children. And by telling the audience one thing, you have to change it. But when your character is up there and you have to decide who you're going to be to the audience, because they have to be able to laugh at you, but you don't want them to hate you. They have to like you even in your struggles and your stupidness and whatever you did. So how do you have to look at yourself, break yourself down and say, how do I want the world to see me while making fun of me? And that takes a ton of digging deep, self-therapy. You can really learn a lot about yourself, and it kind of can change who you are because you start to be more self-aware of how you're seen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the best things that somebody told me once after I did a performance was, I started to hate you in the beginning of that, but you won me over. And I'm like, well, I knew then and there that I must have done something wrong because I never, and I probably started off with some like stupid joke about, I don't even know what, but you're right. I mean, they do have to like you, like the character in a story, like your protagonist. If you're not invested in the, what this person is going through and the struggle they have, if you don't want to see them come to some kind of resolution, then they're going to stop reading the book. And you almost have to think of yourself on stage as the protagonist. I mean, some people can get away with playing the villain on stage, I guess, but
yeah, but it's not about you being likable. It's about what you're saying and how you're making them feel. You can go up there and be a piece of shit because people in the audience are pieces of shit, but they want to see someone be a bigger piece of shit than them. When you watch a comic who's 400 pounds go on stage and he destroys, why is he destroying? Yeah, I mean, obviously he's funny as well, and I'm not just saying the weight part, but why is he doing well? Because a lot of, especially Americans, feel overweight. They have that struggle. They don't want people to joke about it. They don't like being told they're fat. But when they see someone fatter than them having fatter problems, they can laugh at it now. If you're a guy who maybe cheated on his taxes or was like, a girl who cheated on her boyfriend or like that, and you might feel a little bit like a scumbag, whatever, but then some guy goes up and he's like, all I do is cheat on women and all I do is embezzle money and I'm this trickster type guy. It's likable in the way that you can relate and you can make yourself feel better and you can laugh at your own pain because of them. So a lot of time that self-deprecating or that scumbag type person can make you laugh and weirdly enough like them the same way you would like all the characters in Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Where you love them. They're all terrible fucking people, but we all love them. They're all become like our spirit animals because you can understand once you get to know the character. If you display your character right and they get to in 5 minutes, that's hard. But if you're just doing 25 to 45 to an hour, you can really have people learn who you are and understand the character. And therefore, if they learn who your character is, by minute 20, you can tell a joke without really explaining yourself, and they get why you're doing what you do. And that's the best way. If you could make them cheer and give you an applause break and you're supposed to be an asshole on stage, you are doing something beautiful.
Well, there you have it. I mean, we started this off by talking about wrestling, and we ended with some important words of wisdom from the great Pat Oates.
It's like I cut a wrestling promo at the end. So what you gonna do, brother? Read my book.
That's right. All right, here'll be the last question I'll ask. Favorite wrestling match of all time?
I have so many, but I would go with the retirement match between Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair. I think it was the most, in a WrestleMania, it was the most emotional. It was incredible, and you could see the real pain, but it was just legends. One going down gracefully to another, teaching everything, watching Shawn Michaels lip "I love you," then having to super kick him in the head and pin him and end his career. Even if you're not a wrestling fan, watch that match and you will like wrestling for that moment.
The 30 for 30 on Ric Flair is amazing. I have to say, I'd have to go with, and I stopped watching wrestling years ago, but my favorite wrestling match of all time, WrestleMania 3, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus Macho Man Randy Savage. To me, that was when wrestling became, it was like drama plus suspense. Like, and it was just, I couldn't get over it. And then, of course, he loses a month later to the Honky Tonk Man. But
right. And then the whole story of Ricky Steamboat is a crazy back and forth anyway. But Ricky Steamboat and his matches with Ric Flair are legendary. Those are the greatest matches of all time with him and Flair. But yeah, the Macho Man match, the two of them. Macho Man was somebody who people didn't realize this, but he scripted everything out. And Steamboat wasn't that way. When they got together for WrestleMania 3, Macho Man wanted every move written down, calculated this and that, and that's not Steamboat's way. But Steamboat trusted him with this, and they put on this incredible match with false finish after false finish after false finish, where you just kept believing these things were going to happen. And they, once again, you watch that match, and even if you watch wrestling now and try to go back and watch that, it doesn't have the high flying and the stunts and the athletic ability. But two people told a story.
Yeah.
Why I love wrestling, I love comedy for the same reason. When I watch wrestling and I watch comedy, I don't see the performers. I see a movie in my head. When they tell a story right, a comic says it. I don't see the comic talking. I see the story they're telling. When I see wrestlers tell me a story in the ring and I understand the pain, why this person's doing that, why Bret Hart is working your leg over and over and over so he can get you into this thing, this struggle of you having to stop you from doing this thing so he can take over and do this thing to stop you, and then the pain going through, and then to me, it's a male soap opera, and that's why I love watching. And that match definitely is that. It's one of the greatest matches of all. It's considered, like, to most people, the greatest WrestleMania match of all time. There's a couple here that can battle, and they're usually either Undertaker matches or something like that. But yeah, that match is incredible.
And it had Miss Elizabeth.
Yes, it did. Anything involving Miss Elizabeth with Macho Man, especially with him and Ultimate Warrior when she came back and the embrace. You're like, they tried to recreate that this year they have a big fat character named Oates, and there's a woman named Mandy Rose. He's fat and gross, she's beautiful, and there was Dolph Ziggler was being the antagonist, and at the end he got the girl, and every person felt like, I'm a big fat slob, I can get a hot lady now because Otis did. They did the same story, which they can always create forever. It's the same story always, but it's the way they make you connect to it.
Timeless. Now since we are the same age, I have to ask about this regarding wrestling. The Pile Driver album. You remember the Pile Driver album?
Remember, I had on tape.
Yeah. Greatest song on that album.
There's a lot of good things. I liked Grab Them Cakes.
Junkyard
Dog singing Grab Them Cakes. He would come out. I loved Junkyard Dog as a kid.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was a guy who was wrestling forever before in the AWA and things like that. I just knew him as this character who wore a chain, which, by the way, that aged poorly. But at the time, aged really poorly. A black man with a chain coming out to the ring. Thump on his butt, but he was fun, he was lovable, and when he came out to Grab Them Cakes, I didn't know what cakes were. I didn't know that meant like butt cheeks, but it was just like Grab Them Cakes, y'all, and I could sing that song, and it didn't even feel like a wrestling song. It felt like a song. It was like a James Brown feel to it.
Yeah, I'm going with Demolition. I mean, that was to me. I was big into metal back in those days. I referenced Anthrax earlier, but. The Demolition Man, Axe and Slash. I think was that Rick Derringer? Who was
Behringer did something.
He did Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo with Mean Gene Okerlund.
Well, right. Well, Behringer actually helped write a couple of the wrestling theme songs before they got.
Yeah, he did Real American.
Johnson's
he did
now.
Real American.
Well, do you know who wrote Real American?
I thought it was
Jimmy Hart.
Oh, was Jimmy Hart?
Jimmy Hart was a musician in the 50s and 60s in bands and stuff. Jimmy Hart has written a ton of people's songs. He worked with Behringer together. Jimmy Hart wrote a lot of the theme songs in the 80s. He's a musician, too. A great performer and great mind, and also the guy who carried Hogan's weed through airports. That's exactly who he is. He was around forever because he's Hogan's guy. He would carry Hogan's weed and take care of Hogan. Him and Brutus the Barber Beefcake were Hogan's guys. He carried them through everything. Now, Jimmy Hart did have some talents to help out, too. Beefcake did not. Beefcake just existed because he was Hogan's boy, and Hogan had all that power. But Ed Leslie should not have existed in the world of goddamn wrestling. That's a different story. But Jimmy Hart was a musician. I forget the name of the band he was in, but they actually had a number one, like a hit single at one point, too. If you look that up. But, yeah, he helped write that song, and he wrote a couple other of those songs as well. He was a very musically talented guy.
Okay, last one, and now maybe we can agree or disagree on this one. Girls in Cars. Should that never have been recorded?
Yeah, that's an awful song.
Terrible.
That's
Terrible.
Awful. I mean, you can't even really sing it.
Yeah, that was Rick Martel and
the model Rick Martel and it wasn't Dino Bravo. Shit.
Christ.
It wasn't Dino Bravo, but I could see Dino Bravo. And
it was a tag team. I mean, I could picture them in my
head. I know, Martel, and they were the Express, and no, it wasn't. Shit. I'm off on it.
That's all right.
I loved the model version of Rick Martel. That was my favorite version of him. That was a very underrated character. That was back when you didn't get to watch two good people wrestle each other on Saturday mornings. They didn't do that. You'd watch jobbers go against guys. But once in a while, you get to watch Rick Martel fight Bret Hart. And you're like, ooh, this is something. Or Rick Martel when he had to be blindfolded and wrestle Jake the Snake Roberts. That was a great match. Two guys in blindfolds trying to reach each other and then Martel cheating. And he would spray people with perfume and blind them. It was like wrestling was beautiful then. It really was.
Good times. Well, listen, Pat, thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. I
appreciate it. Thank you. And they can find the book on Amazon, How Not to Suck at Comedy. It comes in paperback and it comes in ebook as well. And it's available there, and grab yourself a copy. If you're thinking about doing comedy, if you know someone who likes doing comedy, if you're someone who's been doing comedy a while, just don't tell people so you don't feel embarrassed. The name is there because it's not going to make you good. It's not going to make you funny, but it'll help you not suck.
There you go. And then if people wanted a signed copy, what could they do to get one of those?
Right now with the COVID, probably nothing. To be honest with you, because I don't think they want to send me one through Amazon. But if you buy a copy and you know I'm going to be at a show, bring it. I'll sign it.
All right. So Amazon for the book. Now, some comics may want to have a clip reviewed by you. And maybe you want to give them some pointers. How could they do that?
Oh, I do that. We used to call it comedy coaching, but the term was wrong. It's comedy feedback because some people thought I became their comedy coach for life, and they would message me every day. And I'm like, listen, I can't help you every day. A lot of times when we want to submit clips to festivals or bookers or things like that, or just a lot of times like we talk about before, self-discovery. It is hard to judge yourself. It really is. To watch your own joke, you created it. It's your baby. It's hard to judge it and say your baby's not doing well and your baby needs to learn more. So what I do is, it's painstaking, but I actually enjoy it. If you sent me a 5-minute clip, it takes me literally 2 to 3 hours to watch your 5-minute clip. I break it down like John Madden break it down game film. I break it down to every nuance, not even just about what you're doing on that clip, but about how you tell jokes, to structure your jokes, how you set things up, your delivery, your cadence, things like that. And I break it down with feedback approaches, techniques, and edits that can help you learn how to write better, connect the jokes better, make the audience understand you more, and become more universally connecting with people, and learn how to write in the process. And I do that. And I used to just say, oh, hit me up for rates, whatever. I charge $50. But if you're trying to go to Comedy School or anything else, yeah, it costs me a little bit to sit there and watch it. It is the way I make money, but I don't, anyone I've done it for no one's ever complained. They've all said it's helped. I've helped guys who started off as open micers who are now opening up for national acts, people from all over the country. Funny enough, the only people that don't really do it is people from Connecticut, because I think they know me. They're like, I don't want that guy's help. But I've helped more people in Arizona and Cleveland than I have here. And it's crazy, but I enjoy it. I love comedy. I love watching people's comedy, but some people are really bad. There have been 2 times where I've sent people their money back and said, I can't help you.
And if somebody wanted your help in this regard, how would they go about getting it, Pat?
Just email me at patoatescomedy@gmail.com. Or if you find me on social media, believe me, just in my DM, just say I heard about your comedy feedback and I'd like some information.
Very good. Well, Pat, I feel like this interview went over like a pile driver.
It did. It's now illegal, and it ruined Stone Cold's career. But besides that, we're doing great. So, Michael, thank you so much. I really enjoyed myself.
Thank you, Pat. Take care.
Thanks.
So there it is, my conversation with Pat Oates. Great comedian, great guy, very generous with his time. If you want to get a copy of his book, and I suggest that if you are a comic of any ability, that you do, because it's a great book. I've read it. I still stink, but I don't suck. So the book lives up to its name. So the book, again, is How to Not Suck at Comedy. It is available from Amazon.com. Usually, Pat will give you a way to get a signed copy, but in the days of COVID-19, that's just not prudent at this juncture, as Dana Carvey would say. So Amazon.com for Pat Oates' book. Also, if you're looking for any feedback on your sets or your highlight reels, you can arrange for Pat to give you that. There's a fee for that service, of course, because Pat's time is valuable, but reach out to him at patoatescomedy@gmail.com. And if you like what you hear, go back to other episodes of Uncorking a Story. Listen to some others. They're all good. And last but not least, if you want any more information about me, and if you want to buy maybe a couple of my books, which I hope you do, go to MikeCarlin.com. That's CARLON. The O always throws people off. So MikeCarlin.com. And, just click on the old link there that says books, and you'll learn how to buy a couple. All right? Help send my kids to college. So thank you for listening, for all the hardworking people here at the Uncorking a Story podcast. And there are a lot of hardworking people here. This is Mike Carlin saying thank you for listening, and until next time.